I've come to Godstow by accident. I didn't mean to come here, but there was a massive queue on the road, and then when I wanted to go down the A34 there was an even bigger queue there. It was appalling. So I took off in a different direction, parked up and found myself in some of the most beautiful villages in England. And this ruined abbey, this ruined nunnery here, Godstow Nunnery, which is just astonishing, judging by the flattened arches. I suspect it's something like 1480 or something like that. It's well, certainly I wouldn't have thought it would be much later, because in the 1530s Henry VIII is going to fuck the place, and he did so. Look, but what happened in a lot of places was that people they knocked most of the abbeys down, but took the nicer parts and made them into homes, but not in this case. It's just derelict, but a very beautiful dereliction. No, I was wrong about that. They did turn it into a house. It was the English Civil War paid to that. So yes, it was converted into a house, like a lot of abbeys. There's always an interesting story to be told. A civil war is always a fraught thing, but a dramatic one in the sense that everybody knows each other, and they're at it toe to toe. And there's a story to be told. I'm told there's some memorials in the local church. I'm told, he says. I read it off the board. But I might come back another time and try and tell that story, do some research. That's quite enjoyable, looking at medieval or early modern architecture, looking at memorials in churches and then telling the story of the smaller parts of the gentry fighting for either democracy and a Puritan religion, or age-old custom and the loyalty to a king. It's all very dramatic. Godstow, of course, is an interesting name for those of us who are interested in Old English place names. That's probably, I'd have to look it up, but my first impressions and basing it upon what knowledge I have, I'd say it means good holy place. Stow very often means holy. It doesn't always. It can just mean place. But God is God in Old English, which means good. Oh boy, is it good. That is an old picture of cattle and horses grazing together in open pasture. Just unbelievably pretty. This is the Thames, the Thamesis. This is this is open pasture next to the Thames, just on the edge of Oxford. I'm on my way to see if I can find any books on medieval literature, archaeology or whatever, and plus Oxford's sort of a spiritual home for me. But what has struck me in this area is there's a lot of place names ending in EY. Now if it ends in LEY, that's something different. That means pasture or a wood. But well, there's no L in these islands. So you've got places like Sheppey, which we know are islands. You don't need to put island on the end because it's got the EY on it. Sheppey is island. Probably Sheep Island, I would have thought, but who knows. You have to look at the old charters to know for sure. So there's a lot of them, and it shows how wet this land is. So, or was. It's probably been it may well have been drained. But you can see a lot of causeways and raised ditches, raised dikes and so on. But those words of island tell us that these places are small bits of land surrounded by wet land.
Heraldry, that's the flag of Venice, of the Venetian Republic.
Oh, okay.
These are Venetian rainbows.
Yeah. Is it St. Mark?
It's the St. Mark, yes.
St. Mark,
the Lion of St. Mark, yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
Oh, there was a lucky guess. One out of 4.
Shows your culture.
Yeah, I'm pretending I got some. Thanks. Well, this is that's where I've come from. It's probably about a mile along this meadow, and it's called the Port Meadow, and port means town. And according to the information board, they think this land's been unploughed for 4,000 years. We'll have to have a look at the LiDAR and see if that's true. It's not like me to disagree with experts. Ordruma acrospreca, wisdom is rathu, witenna frofro, and aula yachwam erdnis, and to hict. The reason I quoted that bit of poetry was because we're entering a place called Osny, and it's got the element of, well, it's probably, I'd have to check again, but my first guess is Ossen or something like that, but it's got the element os, which means mouth in Old English, but it can also mean God. So in the Norwegian rune poem and the English rune poem, in the Norwegian rune poem, os means estuary, which is a type of mouth. In Old English it means mouth, but it can, in Old English, it meant God, as in Woden and so on. But in the Icelandic rune poem, it definitely means Odin. So it shows, even though there's a shared culture with the English, Norwegians and other, Scandinavians, we always were a bit more matter of fact, a little bit less dramatic. Cheers. That's very malty, that. The another reason why I quoted that bit of poetry earlier on was because I met a man in a shop who had an os rune on his thumb. Looks something like that. And the thing is, I mean, I tend to think of it as a little bit goose steppy. But it seems lots of people are doing this sort of thing. They're really interested in, and he said to me, I misread it, it was upside down. I said, oh, that's feoch. Why have you got a feoch rune on your hand? And he said, no, it means divinity. And I realised it was os. He said, so, you know, Woden. And bizarre conversation, but it was interesting because people express themselves. They're no longer tied to the past in ways that people born. I mean, I wasn't born after the war. I was born in the 1970s, but I think there's a new generation expressing themselves freely with sort of new ideas. And Sandy Toksvig, the comedian, very liberal person, and she's got 3 runes on her wrist, and it's if the Danes can do it, why can't we? But I wanted to point out, os means, in English, it means mouth, just as much as it means any old other sort of. Just wait for the vicar to go past while I'm talking about paganism. It doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be. Woden. So the English were much more pragmatic. They called things what they were. They weren't flighty at all, really, in that sense. So they did do some very interesting Christian poetry about the nature of the soul, which is quite good. You know, I quite enjoy reading it, translating it. But anyway, I've done my trip to Oxford. I nearly bought a book on medieval medicinal recipes. It was Middle English. It was magnificently easy to translate. When you've done Old English, you just can't believe, you know, basically, as far as I'm concerned, Middle English is just modern English spelt funny. And there's no, you know, there's some, you know, there's sort of some remnants of the of Old English there, but it's quite easy for me. So I practically read it in Blackwell's and didn't buy it. It was 60 quid, which is a shocker. Anyway, I'm in the Jude the Obscure in Jericho. For all you Inspector Morse fans, you will know where Jericho is. There was more than one episode of the Inspector Morse in this area, and it's full of students, and I'm less vicious towards the middle class, the upper middle. I am middle class. I'm less vicious towards the upper middle classes. When you see so many young people starting their careers, they're starting their time at university, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, full of enthusiasm, with a future of interest ahead of them, and I am quite jealous. And it makes you realise when you're middle-aged, it's all about like completing your legacy, completing your story. But actually, it should be about the youngsters and helping them do the fun, interesting, important things that we tried to achieve when we were young. Anyway, I don't think there's going to be very much to do left in this video, and I shall see you on the next one. Ta-ra for now.